I'll tell you what, if yes doesn't win the voice referendum, it is purely and simply down to how bad it... 23 to 5, 131873. Well, I'll tell you what, if yes doesn't win the voice referendum, it is purely and simply down to how bad a campaign it's been. It's been a dreadful campaign, and I have outlined it time and time and time again. The campaign has been a joke. They've got all the advantages, yes, don't they? They've got every single thing they need, hundreds of millions of dollars. They're on the side of aircraft, the might of the government, almost all of corporate Australia, the Australian Labor Party, the trade union movement, you name it, they've got it. But now it looks like they even might have the ballot box on their side. Now, no doubt you've heard this today with Ben and Ray, but I want to go directly to the Australian Electoral Commission on this one to find out exactly what's happening, because apparently if you write yes on your voting card on referendum day, that means yes. If you write no, that means no. But this is where it gets confusing, right? So if you draw a tick, they'll count that as a yes. But if you draw a cross, that's not a no. It doesn't count. So there's two ways to vote yes and only one way to vote no. So they're going to count the ticks as yeses, but ignore the crosses. 131873, is this fair? I don't know what is going on here. Ekin-Smith, he's from the Australian Electoral Commission, and he is the spokesperson putting up to answer all these questions. He's on the line. Evan, thanks for your time.
Good afternoon, Chris, and thanks for having me on.
All right, can you explain it? So why are you accepting a tick but not a cross?
Well, it's a long-standing thing, decades and decades in terms of the electoral law, the referendum law, and legal advice on this matter, which says that a tick is a clear representation of approval and used commonly throughout Australian society as a clear representation of approval. A cross...
Oh, we've lost Evan. That's a shame. We'll try to get Evan back on the line. We'll hang him up and we'll try to get him back on the line. But I was desperate to find out. Oh, here he is. He's back on. Evan, is your line a bit better? So why is the cross... We lost you there for a second. So why is the cross no
apologies. Good? Can you hear me?
Clear as crystal.
Yeah, great. So across the advice that we've received for a number of decades, and we've reaffirmed that advice, is that a cross used across Australian society for a number of reasons can indicate either approval or not approval. People use it as a check mark on a form, for instance, which is indicating approval. But the really important thing to note here is the scale of what people are talking about this matter on. Over 99% of people in the 1999 referendum, the most recent one that we've conducted, cast a formal vote. Of the 0.86% of people who cast an informal vote, not all of them would be related to ticks and crosses either. So the vast majority of people will simply follow the instructions, and they're easy instructions.
Now, I know it wasn't a referendum, right? But when we did the survey form, the Australian Marriage Law Postal Survey for same-sex marriage, I've got the form in front of us, and it says, should the law be changed to allow same-sex couples to marry? Question mark, 2 boxes, yes and no, and you can tick or cross either, and it would have been... That's pretty clear to me, Evan. Why have we deviated from that?
Because it's a different process. So we haven't deviated from what referendums have done for a very long time. And in fact, it's not the AEC either. It's the law. So we've got a book that we follow, the Referendum Machinery Provisions Act. It even outlines how the ballot paper will look. Single question, single box, an empty box. People write yes or no in full, in English. And the vast majority of people, as we've seen in previous referendums, will be doing that.
So if English isn't your first language? Well, you don't know in English?
So anything that is not yes or no in English in full leaves it open to interpretation. The savings provision, which is a bit of a clunky term, but it's been in legislation for decades, says that if the intent is clear, we will count it. But the clear instruction to people, and it'll be on the ballot paper, our polling officials will tell people when they hand them a ballot paper, the posters in the polling place, the guides we're delivering, the advertising we're doing, it will all say the same thing. Either write yes or no in full in English.
What happens if you write no way?
Again, it leaves it open to interpretation. Please just follow the instructions.
What's up to interpretation about no way?
We're having a conversation about interpretation of ticks and crosses as well. So I don't want to make an interpretation here that's going to broadly apply as a spokesperson across the entire referendum.
What about bloody oath?
Don't want to go through them all, Chris. But the vast majority of people will be voting either yes or no, in clear, in full, and those instructions will be very clear.
I just don't understand, right? So I understand, like, if it's yes and no, that's fine, but why a tick?
So a tick is commonly understood, and again, we sought legal advice around ticks and crosses. It's commonly understood across Australian society to indicate the affirmative approval, whereas a cross can be a checkbox.
Have you ever seen
people use it on forms all the time?
Have you ever seen Deal or No Deal when they say no deal and they put a big cross up?
I have seen the show, Chris. Yes.
Yeah, it's a no. It's a cross.
I'm aware of that, but people are filling out forms every day, and we must, as the AEC, we're electoral administrators. We apply the rules as they're written. We're very careful in seeking legal advice where we need to. If the legislation was different, we would follow different legislation, but it's in place, has been for decades. And in fact, we've been briefing parliamentarians on this for a long time. The commissioners stood up in Senate estimates and parliamentary forums talking about the savings provisions. It's not new in any way, shape or form. This is how referendums have been run for a very long time, and it will affect a very small number of people. If you follow the instructions, very simple instructions, it's very easy.
Do you concede, though, that there is two ways to vote yes and one way to vote no?
Well, you were going through more examples, so it's not quite that simple. We're not just talking about yes and no and ticks and crosses. You were referencing other examples before as well. The only two that matter is the full word in English as per the instructions.
Right. Just while I've got you on the air, the voting date will be announced next Wednesday. We're all expecting it October 14. Just for people, is it going to be similar to an election where you have a 2-week run of postal voting and 6 p.m. that night the voting will start to be counted?
It'll look, feel and hopefully smell with the sausage sizzles exactly like a federal election. Polling day were thousands of in-person polling places, early voting period of 2 weeks. For remote areas, because the logistics are complicated, there'll be 3 weeks for that leading up to polling day. Postal votes, you can apply for those as soon as we get the date, which will be great. Having some certainty around the date will be fantastic for the AEC and our planning.
Righto. Good luck with the ticks and crosses. I'll let you go. Thanks, Evan.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
That's Evan Ekin-Smith from the Australian Electoral Commission. I don't know what to make of all this. Look, it's a small issue, but seriously, could this confuse people anymore? 131873. What did you make of this? Absolutely not. Oh, that could be open to interpretation. Wouldn't have thought. 4:45.